You're listening to the True North Success Podcast. Real stories of personal, professional, and financial wins from Alberta's best. With your hosts, Gary Ma and Amy Kim.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today, my special guest is Abdullah Choudhry. Abdullah, growing up in Pakistan, he witnesses climate change reshape his community, inspiring him to rethink how we measure environmental impact. Mechanical engineer and researcher, he co-founded Arbor to build faster and audit-ready carbon accounting tools. Arbor helps companies measure, understand, and decarbonize their supply chains with speed and accuracy. It's a real pleasure to have him on the show today. Welcome, Abdullah.
Thank you, Amy. Really excited.
Awesome. So, Abdullah, I gave a brief overview of your success and what you do. Can you feed in the detail of what you do and the main client, if there are any, or how long you've been doing this for?
Yeah. So, quick backstory. We started about 6 years ago in Calgary. All my co-founders are from Calgary. I immigrated here in 2018. And honestly, probably one of the only places I could have built this. But so our tool essentially, takes the business data that any business has and it transforms it into carbon, as well as water, waste, other environmental indicators. But carbon is just what's on top of businesses' minds today. As a personal backdrop to my own story, thanks for mentioning that. I grew up in Pakistan, and I kind of saw how communities were being affected by climate change. So just wanted to contribute a solution to all these problems that we have in the environmental side at from a personal point of view. And honestly, the only mission was to help redirect dollars to the right places that are doing the right things. In the context of our clients, it means allocating money towards decarbonization initiatives so we can move towards a net zero economy and have as little of a negative impact on the resources that we use around the world. So some of our clients are companies like Crocs, the footwear company. There's a few apparel companies like Gildan, a lot of bike companies. So we have customers all over the world, mainly in the US, Canada, Europe, and Japan. So those are the regions that we have a lot of our customers in. But everything that we've done and built has been in Calgary.
Wow, that is awesome. So, you mentioned briefly about your upbringings in Pakistan. So can you share the story of how you get in, started in your career, what drew you to this field, maybe something to do with how you grew up in Pakistan. So would you be able to share that, how, is there any defining moments that shaped the path you are on today?
Yeah, I think it's true for most people who grew up in Asia. It's usually a very competitive schooling than I think from other regions. I would say up until the age of 12, 13, I was just part of that system. And I was just trying to make sure my parents were proud and doing good in school. But eventually, I kind of realized that there was no end to that type of mindset either. So for me, purpose was very highly unknown. Before me, nobody in my family did engineering. Nobody even left the country before me. So at 16, I decided to leave to kind of try to learn things I didn't know. So I felt very always comfortable picking up a book and understanding it and answering things about it and trying to figure out what it's about. That stuff always came easier to me. But what didn't come easier to me was what do I do with that type of an ability? So I decided to move to UK and start my engineering just so I can learn something practical and I could apply my thinking towards. So I knew that I wanted to build things and I knew I wanted to apply them as well. So that was very important to me. So engineering was a very generic thing that I thought I should just learn as a good skill set for me to learn how to build hard things, what it takes. And then that's how I essentially started this journey. I didn't know it was going to lead here. I'll be very honest, right? Me leaving Pakistan was about 14 years ago at this point, but I left by myself. I didn't have any family that came with me or anything, but I moved to the UK and I started my education there. Then I went to the US, did my research there, and then I moved to Canada after. So it's been a very long journey, and each place has taught me a lot of things along the way that has all contributed to where I am today.
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of can like imagine and then agree that your journey, because I'm also my background is engineer, so like would like to learn something and something that is more practical and apply to our daily life for improvement. So that kind of like I can see where you come from. So climate change, the climate tech is evolving quickly, and carbon, accounting has traditionally been a little bit slow, I would say. So what do you think really sets you apart from as a founder in this space? Are there any specific strength that maybe technical that or a unique experience that gives you an edge in building the trustworthy, like ground truth, like carbon data?
Yeah, I think it goes a lot back to my upbringing. I mean, I talked a little bit about my professional part, but what I didn't mention was that the town that I grew up in was in the Indus Valley in Pakistan. So it's like where there's a lot of rivers. On the rivers were a lot of factories. So I kind of grew up around all these factories that my friend's dad was owning, like a small factory, and we would go and play there and stuff. So like, essentially, I was witnessing things that I didn't really put into place way later in my life. But what I realized was that the way that supply chains work in general was people were just essentially looking for the lowest price, right? And for the right quality, obviously. And then people would do whatever it takes to be able to get there. And I think climate change is a problem that it required a different type of a mindset on supply chain specifically. And then what I realized was that, I kind of say this thing where I was, raised by the East, but educated by the West. So I think the raising of the East had a lot to do with like that unique outlook into this problem. A lot of people in the West are doing, great things to tackle this problem, but they can only do what they have seen and experienced, right? They can only solve problems they can identify. So I saw a lot of these problems that, people were using certifications, or people were using like, that, oh, trust me that this is good, right? Because they didn't really care about the sustainability as much, obviously, back then. But then now that people started caring about it, just because of the old infrastructure, there were so many roadblocks along the way and friction points that you're trying to do something that's good for the environment and you're trying to make a case for it within your business. But if getting to the answers is such a hard process and it is not a trustable process, and you can't really be sure whether or not if you end up doing it will have good benefits or bad benefits towards the environment, it creates more and more uncertainties, which means that there's less and less people acting on it. And there's also a slower and slower amount of progress that's being done on these issues as well. So essentially, all I wanted to do was like kind of eliminate that barrier of entry for more and more people to understand what they could do with whatever products they were making, whatever supply chains look like for them globally. So I spent a lot of time in research looking at into this problem, but then I kind of realized that if my route was to just publish my findings, nobody was going to act on them. So I really wanted to go ahead and take the next step, which is why I went into engineering, which is to build something and then get people to use it and apply it to real world situations.
Oh, wow. Oh, awesome. That's a very interesting story. Yeah. Awesome. So, anyone listening to our podcast who wanted to step into entrepreneurship, that like what advice would you give? Like, were there any particular mindset shifts or habits or experience that helps you move in your case from like engineering into building the company? You mentioned a little bit, but would you like to go dive a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I mean, I get this question a lot from people because like obviously there is like an image of what this stuff is like. And anybody who would have ever done any of it would ever tell you like the image is not accurate. So I would like kind of divide them into two different subjects. So I think one is just entrepreneurial thinking. You don't need to be an entrepreneur, but the world could definitely use entrepreneurial thinking, right? The world could definitely use entrepreneurs too, but especially for like creating businesses that solve real problems and challenges. But entrepreneurial thinking is something that I think anybody can apply to within whatever role they're in. So I think you can think entrepreneurially by essentially thinking more on like a little bit what I call first principle thinking. So like, your what, why, when, like having a good understanding of those things at all times, whether you're at work, whether you're in school, you can start building your entrepreneurial thinking. That's essentially what it means, is that you have good fundamental understanding of what's around you, what's happening, and how things are moving. So people can apply that in a bunch of different ways. But now the second thing, which is, are you really wanting to be an entrepreneur and you want to go on that journey? I think the number one disclaimer is that it is a lifestyle choice. It is not a thing that you can just do and then get out of it. If that is something that you're always thinking about as why you're starting your entrepreneurship journey, you will lose a lot of motivation really quickly once you realize how long things can take to actually work out. For like, even if things work, it doesn't mean it makes money, right? Like it takes a lot of stages to be able to get to that point where you could earn back some of that freedom. And every entrepreneur that I look up to, they don't use that freedom. They just keep going down that more and more entrepreneurial route. So I would say that was the number one disclaimer I would try to tell people, is like, it's a lifestyle choice. So you can dip into the lifestyle choice because you don't have to, nobody's paying you, nobody's telling you what to do. So you can start it at any point. But really get a taste of that lifestyle before you commit fully to it, I would say. And then I think the other two things that are really good to remember, for me anyways, that I apply to myself every day. One is persistence. So like, people might not be nice to you, people might not be, but you can't let these things stop you or slow you down. So just be persistent as an entrepreneur and not make it about yourself. So even if, you can be embarrassed, you can be ashamed, you can be stressed, you can be anxious, but the entrepreneur is acting on behalf of an idea or a product, right? So as long as you can separate those two things and be persistent in your entrepreneurial activities, I think that is one thing that works really well for me. And the last one I would say is compassion. I think, people lose control of emotions a lot of the times. And I think, if you want to be in this entrepreneurship journey, it's a lot less taxing if you try to be compassionate as much as possible with people you disagree with, people you agree with, customers you love, customers you don't love. It could be anything. But as long as you are compassionate, I think people understand where you're coming from. And even if they don't agree with you, you can still move forward.
Yeah, wow. Actually, I can relate it so much what you're saying, because I also started the journey in business in real estate from IT engineer. Now I'm thinking about it. I thought it was starting the business, but also it was the journey of personal growth. So I really love how you say that have a compassion about and empathy about other people, even though the people has different opinions, or sometimes they might have the vision, they might not see the vision that you have, but it's okay, because at the end, we are the one have put most of amount of effort and time, so we know better. I think better. So sometimes you can doubt, like, oh, am I doing the right path? Am I on the right path? But because it takes time, right? It takes time to show the outcomes. It doesn't necessarily show the outcome right away. So like you mentioned, it needs a persistence. It needs some patience. And also I love how you say that have to curious about things happening around you. You cannot just to see like narrow vision, because as an entrepreneur, what you said was that like have to see what's really happening around you and trying to solve the problems for other people. If we have a tunnel vision, it's often that it's hard to see what other people having problems, how they solve the problems, right? So yeah, I love your story. So it sounds like things are going really well for you and your business. So yeah, so congratulations. So many busy, the business owners are earning strong incomes right now, but it often requires a significant investment of time and energy. So Right now, especially looking ahead, a common goal is to maintain the same level of income or lifestyle while working less, especially with inflation at all-time high. So as a result, many people are exploring some ways to generate income outside of their primary work, like such as like investing in stocks and some bond or like precious metal or real estate. What are your thoughts about income outside of work?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I have a very, I would say, different outlook on it than most people. And this is not financial advice, like as my lawyers would remind me to say that before I answer this. So I think for me, like I'm a very much like a high risk, high reward entrepreneur. And I think a lot of the time these type of question comes with people who have a lower risk threshold. So I just really wanted to like paint that before I answer it. So I think if you're asking like for people who have a lower risk threshold, I would say even markets like public markets are volatile right now, and there's a lot of if you follow any of the people who know a lot more about the subject than I do, I would recommend following Ray Dalio. He is a really good communicator about what's happening, as well as he's gone through that journey several times himself. So, he just came out with some great stuff over the last couple of weeks since the stock market went down. And it's a lot about like what happens when the market is going through it, like what you need to do and be able to do it. There's a lot of data historically you can look at. So the summary of it is like look at more like more precious commodities than stocks right now, because even market valuations are all over the place because new technology is disrupting it. The global politics are disrupting valuations. So I would find most security in things that are really, really important and are very simple. So that's why I would recommend some of that type of investment. But again, now if you're a little bit on the higher risk threshold, right? Like that's where I find a lot of people like me. I would say, in my mind right now, passive income is more of a desire of a lot of people than an outcome. So like people are thinking about it in the wrong way. So they were trying to get to a passive income, and then they're trying to figure out what do I need to do. And I think if they just reverse that situation, where if they're like, okay, what's happening right now? So a little bit what I was talking about, like first principle thinking, right? So what's happening in the world? What is valuable? What is losing value? What's gaining value, right? A lot of these things, like, again, I am a technology person, so it might just be very limiting to some people, but I don't think it is anymore. So I think like currently everything around us is going through an AI renaissance, right? And the best, imagine if you were like a painter in like when, Da Vinci was around and there was all these like art pieces coming, like there was a period and boom of things that were happening right around you that you could participate in. So I would say for people who have higher risk threshold, instead of going traditional, really learn how to use AI in ways that they can think themselves. A couple of apps that are super easy for people of all age groups, for people of all technology backgrounds. I really like Replit. It requires pretty much not even a laptop for you to try out and build stuff, right? So, I mean, ChatGPT obviously is what most people are using, but I would recommend getting a little bit where, you can use these tools to build a passive income. So essentially, in my mind, if you invest in those right now, those will have a lot more guaranteed dividends than other passive incomes that are perhaps not as dependent anymore. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Such a great insight that you're sharing with us. Really appreciate it. I have been watching Ray Dalio about like how the cycle works for each empire and where we are at and where you're heading. And there's some asset class that can be a little bit resistant toward those whenever there's an end of the empire cycle. So yeah. I understand. I think I understand what you're talking about. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing some of your great insights and inspiring stories with us. So, what is exciting plans, initiatives do you have coming up over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think At a personal level, we've done a lot of good groundwork. Obviously, over the last year, we have a good foundation of what we're helping companies to do. So we're really excited to take it to the next level. So essentially, you know, put our technology in the hands of more and more important companies, so they can put dollars towards decarbonization. I think it's a pretty simple mission. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about what our plans are because I can't talk about them too much. But yeah, the idea is to try to maximize the impact that we can have in a positive way on the world. That requires us to scale. And I think, yeah, like as long as we don't sacrifice our values for the scale, that's the part I really care about. And as long as we can have the same impact on the world. So yeah, for the next 6 to 12 months, while the world is going through all this chaos, we're hoping we'll be able to find the right companies who will still be willing to champion the right causes, which I believe their customers and investors will still continue to care.
Awesome. Could you share some successful story that you were able to help the customer from, recognizing where the part that they can make an improvement when it comes to a carbon, measurement like this, and in terms of the supply chains like that, would you be able to help to share your successful story with us?
Yeah, I think I'll say I'll tell you about the one that I'm proudest about. So yeah, I mean, we try to help all of our clients, and obviously they have to make decisions on whether they want to change things, whether they want to plan on changing on things. But the thing that I'm really proud of is the customer I mentioned earlier, Crocs, the footwear company, because it's such a well-known product in the whole world, right? Like you think about the Crocs, there's only one company that makes them. It's like a very important product for the culture. You either love them or you hate them. There's nothing in between. So like people know what it is. And when I started this company, all I wanted was like all these like big companies who make these like really well-known products to be able to shift how they think just by a little bit, and they can continue doing what they are making money for and grow and stuff. So yeah, the thing that I was super proud of was that for the last 20, 30 years, they've been making the shoes the same way, right? So they would get a barrel of oil and they will use it to make rubber out of it, and then the rubber is what gets used in the shoe. But the thing is that because so many people love Crocs and they keep buying them, more and more we keep using barrels of oil, and we keep funding the fossil fuel industry, which is already kind of under pressure. But this is not even like a thing that is the only thing they could do. So we help them figure out how many carbon emissions they could reduce in their supply chains by trying out different materials and substitutes for that barrel of oil. You still need that to make the shoe today, but through this journey of them using our platform and our software, we've helped them reduce 6% of the carbon footprint of their shoe. It's actually a lot more closer to 20% now, but I'll let them talk about those numbers. But there's a case study on Arbor's website that you can go and actually read about how they were able to use our technology, and they started using used cooking oil to substitute a lot of that barrel of oil. So they essentially started redirecting their dollars to, instead of creating demand for fossil fuels, creating demand of waste material that we didn't really know what to do within the world with. So now if we can keep making Crocs with those, I'm sure we can find other purposes for that type of material. As well as all the other things that we just don't think about we can use to help with solutions. So yeah, helping them reduce the footprint of their shoe by 6%, it actually reduced their overall company footprint by 3%. So like it was like a huge savings of emissions while the company was growing, and now they know how to keep reducing emissions while still growing as a business. And that's the kind of a story I hope more and more companies will start following.
Wow. Yeah, I love that your story. That's amazing. So, would you like to share some biggest challenges? Like we celebrate some wins too. So, would you be able to share some challenges that you were able to you faced, and then what you had to do about that?
Yeah. I was gonna say everything I've said. I didn't know these things when I started, right? So, and then so many things I don't know. I still don't know much, I would say. So all of the things that I've said, they are direct answers and learnings from those challenges, right? So like a lot that I've experienced. So like I think like being persistent, for example, like it's such a weird thing, but like it's you are your only believer. You don't need anybody else to believe in you if you really think, right? And I'm not saying that as like a faith-based thing. Like you could look at data, you could look at analysis, but as long as you're being logical and you're being true to the good principles that you've set on this path, you can take on a lot of those challenges that'll come along the way. Because the first one is like, how are you going to get somebody to believe in you? Doesn't matter if it's a customer or a future employee or a co-founder, whatever that is. And I think the other part of the challenge is like the rewards. Like you need to really understand how much do you want it to be just for yourself. And that's totally fine. Like if, be as selfish as you can be, but define that as early as possible. I've seen people get really confused in this journey because, once either you hit success or you don't hit success, you have to make certain decisions. And at that point, if you don't know what your values and foundations are, they can present a lot of challenges. So, I would say you're going to face a lot of challenges along the way. So like what helped me early in the journey was to create my own ethos and my own values that I subscribe to. And it really helped me along the way, because one thing was rejection, right? Like I come from a third world country. And, I'm a Muslim and I've been traveling through all these countries. I lived in Kansas, right, during the first time Trump got elected. So I could have used any one of those experiences my whole life to say, I'm going to use them to define me. But I just use them as learning opportunities. And I kind of like went through it, and you'll always find the right people. If you persevere, you will find the right people. Good people and bad people are everywhere. So I would say don't let the challenges limit you. Use them as every time you go through a challenge, add a badge and add the learning to overall the body of work that you're putting towards. Yeah.
I love your story. So, the faith in ourselves, and don't give a F about how other people think about you. Sometimes you have to do that, right? As an entrepreneur.
In a compassionate way,
In a good way, compassionate way, yeah, for sure. And I love that. Thank you so much. So if anyone wanted to, get a hold of you, how they can connect to you?
Yeah, I think easiest way would be LinkedIn. I still try to reply to all the people who genuinely are not just selling me stuff, but actually want advice and help. Like I said, I've kind of been on a unique journey. I know a lot of people, especially in Canada, I've gone through the immigrant journey or the technical journey or the entrepreneurial journey. So I can relate to a lot of it. But I think the thing is that I am available for a quick coffee, a quick chat for people who are actually genuinely looking for advice. And I'm only available because I always promise myself that if I ever learned a thing or two, I'll make sure to pass it on.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. It wasn't on the list of the questions, but I kind of wonder because I'm in a construction industry, building, offering more rental housings. So do you have any thoughts on like how can we reduce more, carbon emission when it comes to construction? Do you have any opinion on this?
Yeah, I would say the one that will excite you the most will be the one that will also help your business, right? So I always like just talking because it's a business, right? At the end of the day, and we shouldn't shy away from like the things that really matter, because you wouldn't want to increase the cost of your construction or lower your margin by too much. I mean, there would be a limit, but if you can figure out how to continue to reduce emission and keep increasing the value that you generate from your business, that's the thing that you can keep doing on and going better. So I would say there's a couple things. I would divide them in two things. One is when you're building it versus when it's being used or it's under operational use. So I would say for the construction of it, like you're probably going to use a lot of concrete and cement. And there are some amazing concrete companies in Alberta. I can refer you to a couple that actually use carbon capture to create low carbon cement instead of the ones that you can buy off the market. Now, It might be a little bit more expensive, but that's where was going to add like where it makes sense for your business too, is you can go ask your bank if you're using any commercial real estate financing at any point to inquire whether or not this will be eligible for a sustainability linked loan or some sort of interest rate that could be lowered in benefits to you wanting to reduce your emissions. So you can get some benefits on, your banking side of things, as well as the other side of it, which is the operational use. That side of things is a little bit more like, if you want to put some sort of renewable energy source in there, so it's not on the grid, or you want to put a different like heating or cooling system in there that uses less energy. I would say those are like two options that have a lot of substitutes available. I'm sure you're familiar with them already, but I would try to package that as a product to your customers, because if you're doing anything for businesses would pay more for square footage that is lower footprint than they would, because that's how we help them measure their footprint. So you can imagine if they're committed to reducing their emissions, they will be looking for real estate that has a lower footprint per square footage. So you can communicate that now once you have these decisions, and you can increase the price of that square footage with that metric. And then obviously if it's for residential, I think it'll attract the right type of people, especially younger people if they're looking to rent. I'm sure this is something that a lot of people who have to deal with this in the future are caring about.
Awesome. So thank you so much again. Truly appreciate your time and the perspective you brought to the conversation. So thank you, Abdullah. Have a great day.
Thank you, Em.
Thank you.
Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at truenorthsuccessshow.com/guest. We'd love to hear from you.